Hello. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Are we tired? Oh, okay. But it sounds like we are. Are we? Are we tired? If you're not tired, say good. I want you to be louder than the one person standing in front of you because there are like over 100 people here. If you're not tired, say good. Good. Fantastic. So our next panel conversation is going to be on policy meeting purpose. And I have the honor of sitting with two amazing speakers who are going to share light, experience, and inspire purpose in each and every one of us. And I hope you all get a piece of that. So I'll invite our first speaker. She's a communications and policy advocacy expert with over a decade of experience in climate change, health, and gender justice. She's the founder and strategic lead of the Afrique Center for Health, Climate, and Gender Justice Alliance, where she advances gender-responsive climate action and youth engagement across Africa. She's an accredited journalist whose work has appeared in outlets such as Liberal News Network, African Science News. She has consulted for UNFPA, collaborated with the European Parliament members to strengthen EU East African partnerships. Our speaker is also an active member of the UNFPA Climate Action Working Group. Help me invite, please, if you don't clap loud enough, she won't come up here, okay? Help me invite Miss Imali. Okay. We are getting there. She's smiling. It means your clap is making her very happy. I can say that your clap has made her feel more welcome since she got to Ghana, right? Thank you. Thank you too for indulging. Now I have the other honor of inviting our next speaker. He's a writer and a regional integration expert and seasoned moderator with over 2 decades of experience in African affairs. He's trained for the diplomatic service in Brussels, where he built a career at the intersection of international communications, research, and activism. He has moderated high-level sessions for the African Union and its agencies since 2016. And at 2016, how old were some of you, by the way? And serves as Ghana's coordinator at the African Union Development Agency's new NEDPAS Agenda 2063, the media network. He's also a deputy executive director of the AFCTA policy, where he also champions African Union's freedom of movement protocol and has consulted with IOM on migration, health, and regional integration. Please, just as you did, this person has 2 decades of experience, by the way, more than 2 decades of experience. I want the roof to shake. Let's show some love to Mr. Emmanuel Bensa. He's getting here. He's not smiling. It means you're not clapping loud enough. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my lovely audience. I like the energy that's building up in the room, and I hope that by the time we are done with the conversation, you all learn a lot from our seasoned speakers. So before we get into the main discussion, I know both of you have had the honor of traveling across different countries, especially in Africa. Can you tell me one of your favorite cities you have visited in Africa and why?
The best city I have seen is Nairobi. But on a serious note, no, that's really biased. It's because it's where I was born and my docking station. But I've had the privilege of going to Marrakesh. I felt it was really nice. That's where I actually met Jenkins, who you guys called Ewara. Irama, yeah. Yes. The names, it's different because in Morocco we used to call her Ewura. So when I came and I was asking, I want to speak to Ura, it was different. It was really nice because we took a horse ride at night and we went into a shop at night and we experienced the most beautiful thing as Africans. 3 different people from 3 different African countries who had not met each other, meeting in Morocco for the first time and having an African experience.
That's nice. Please, let's show some love for her. At least she moved beyond her country, which is great. Please, over to you, Mr. Benson.
I like road trips a lot, and I think I wouldn't single out one particular country, but to be honest with you, the region which I really enjoy being in is East Africa, because I think East Africa is just so very different from West Africa, my home country, where there's too much heat a lot of the time, and Harmattan gives us the impression that we have a winter, which is good, but it's too short. By February, it's gone. But in East Africa, it's there for a longer period. The weather, and it's just nice looking the greenery, everything. I mean, airports are good and they're necessary, but they can be really boring. What is really nice is being in a car where you can see the scenery, the greenery, and be reminded that at the end of the day, you still come from a village, because we all come from a village. We sometimes forget when we get too stuck in the city. We come from a village, and getting connected to those roots is good. But one thing I must finally say, though, that is Ethiopia. I like Addis for the fact that they're very tolerant of dogs running around the city. I'm a dog owner, even though we lost our dog like a couple of months ago, and I feel it's very interesting to see that they're very tolerant of dogs, even though in this country, some parts we eat them, but that's another story. What dogs do for us are amazing, and I like the fact that Ethiopia, they just manage it somehow very well, and I think we can take lessons from them. Thank you.
Wow, let's show some love to Mr. Benson. So everybody and their interests, people were enjoying nightlife and exploring cities, and others are interested in how a country accommodates one of the things that are precious to them, which is their pets. Maybe there's a cue for you to visit some of the places you've mentioned if you've not been there. Now, for decades, let's get back to the serious business, right? For decades, we've had different conversations about youth being excluded. First it was women, and then it's youth, and as advocacy increases, persons with disability, right? But today we are focusing on youth because of the category of people we have here who also form an intersection of all of these people. We've had advocacy for youth to be involved in decision-making processes meaningfully. And that advocacy moved to states and international organizations saying, okay, let's bring the young people in, but we create a side event for them. So we'll call it the youth wing, the youth angle, the youth pillar of the main conversation. And the youth says, no, that's not what we are asking for. We want to be in the same rooms where you are signing the contracts and making the agreements and deciding on what our lives look like. That hasn't happened for a lot of countries. I want to ask you, what does it mean to you when they say young people are being meaningfully engaged in decision-making processes? And how should that look like for each of us here? I'll start with you, Imali.
Fantastic, excellent choice. So first and foremost, being young is not an excuse for you to be mediocre. Being young is not an excuse for you to do shoddy work and be excused for it. Being young does not exempt you from an economic crisis. Being young does not exempt you from disease or catastrophe. That means that you need to show up as a person you want to be treated. You teach people how to treat you. Never ever forget that. So as a young people, if you want to be engaged meaningfully, it's how you show up. In many countries, I've had the privilege of living and working, I think now it's over 55 countries, most of them in Africa. And I can tell you something, if you're going to go to these forums at the African Union, even here in Ghana, and you're going to say, oh, I'm a young person, I don't know what's happening to my microphone. Maybe it's because I'm youth. Let me move this side. Yeah, sorry. The direct connectivity here. I can just move slightly. I think that's better. Yeah, so it's going to say it's how you show up in the marketplace. And it's also how you dress up in the marketplace. You dress the way you want to be addressed. If you show up with a t-shirt and a jeans in a place where people are talking about policy, they're going to tell you, people like you are supposed to be in the youth wing, where other people belong. But if you show up there dressed up and you're polished and you've read the policies, you've read what has been happening in your country for the last 5 years, 10 years, and you come up with solutions, people will include you. People will always have room for you if you have something to offer. Now, in the African terrain, as a young person, I must admit it has been a very challenging line growing into the position of power. But before I left my home, I put myself where I want to be. I put myself where I know people will be able to listen to me and respect. And I put myself in a position, if I were a CEO, what would I do? You see, because when you come up in a forum and you're going to say, oh, we are always being excluded, oh, we always need a chance for what? No one ever gives you what you deserve. People always give you what you fight for. So I can tell you, when I worked in the office of the deputy president as an intern, whenever I used to show up in the workplace, I used to be among the first people to show up there. I used to dress how I want to be addressed, and I used to find out what the government is saying, the government positions on Vision 2030, to a point that now when they were writing minutes, they had to include me, because they're like, this child, she understands. She has an understanding of what you're going to talk about. And when you write minutes, you write them as a professional, because you're writing something that is going to be referred to by senior people. And when they ask you what you think, you don't just say, I think what you say. No. When I look at Kenya, where it's going, and I look at Singapore, and I see that that is what the president said, this is what I think you should prioritize on. And when you keep doing that, people are going not only to invite you, people are now going to fund you. They're like, you know something, there is something about you that's very different. There's something about you that's very distinct, and I feel that you have what it takes to go to the next level. When I worked in the 5 UN agencies, I started off as a volunteer. And people say volunteers shed volumes of tears. And it's true, you can shed volumes of tears, or you can cry yourself to sleep. But you can say, look, I have 1 foot in. What can I do differently? When I was a volunteer at one of the UN agencies, that time UN never used to pay, by the way. It used to be a privilege. I don't know about the UN center here, but in Kenya, we have one of the largest. Getting inside, it's a privilege, because the kind of security you have to get through, then getting inside the office is a privilege. So for me, I counted it as a privilege. And I used to show up early, then I would ask, how can I help you? You know, how can I help you? And people will be like, but you're just an intern, you know. There's someone like, you know what, you can come into a meeting. We're talking about women empowerment. Come into a meeting and see if you can write notes. And I did a good job. They're like, you know something, you'll be going for all our meetings. And the good thing about the UN, when you go with them in their meetings abroad or in country, they'll still pay you the same per diem they pay everybody else. So yes, I was not salaried, but I was per diem. And the per diem was really good for me for that time, because it catered for all the things. So I started looking at, how does my boss dress? How does she show up? So not to compete with her, but to also look like shadow her. When she says something, you accentuate it. You say whatever she's telling you is what she teaches me in the office, you know. And when someone's like, this girl is not just here to be seen, she's here to back me up. She's here, I always had her back. I never wanted to outthink her or outgrow her. I always knew my space. And then after that is, whenever my contract would end, another UN agency would open. And that's how I ended up being a communication assistant, to the level that now I ended up working in the office of the deputy president, and then I ended up in the NGO space, and boom, I went to Asia. And then from Asia, someone from Germany had me talking. They actually thought I was South African, because I don't have Kenyan names as many Kenyans do. And they hired me, and I worked in Europe, I worked in Belgium, I worked with the members of the European Parliament. Then I came back to Africa. That's how I ended up in working 50 countries. And then in total, that's 4 different continents, but at different levels and in different capacities. But it's basically how I showed up.
Wow. If you were not going to clap, I was going to ask, were you listening at all? Imali is showing up here and she's showing up with a lot of energy and she's reminding you that nobody's going to make space for you. You need to show up and be relevant, come with value, and they can't ignore you. Great job. Please, let's show some love to her again. Please, over to you, Mr. Vincent.
Thank you very much. Just to write on the back of what Imali said about showing up, that's the biggest thing you need to do. About almost 3 weeks ago, I had the privilege of moderating a session at the Pan-African Parliament for the African Peer Review Mechanism. So the African Peer Review Mechanism is the AU's agency responsible for promoting good governance. I'm part of the Communicators Network, so I was asked to open the communications network because it's been revised. There's a new leadership at the APRM, Marie-Rose Quach, and so on. But it was done on the sidelines of the 5th APRM Youth Symposium. They've been running youth symposiums for the past, since 2019. I was at the 2019 one, supporting them on communications. I'm 48, so I'm 8 years past being a youth. When I was 25, I did not have the access the youth now has. And so sometimes it's amazing to see how far they have come, but I think there's still a lot of work that the youth needs to do. At the Youth Symposium at the Pan-African Parliament 2 weeks ago, there was a bit of a problem in the sense that some of the youth felt that being there wasn't just a privilege, it was an opportunity to also, be disrespectful to some of the adults who had mobilized the youth to be there, which was not the best. So it called for the APRM's boss to actually call the staff. Most of them were largely youth, under 30s, who actually arranged the youth symposium and say, these are the people who arranged the youth. Why are you disrespecting some of these people? Some of them were talking about the fact that, the program was led by old people and mobilizing, hiding behind. But you see, the thing is, at the end of the day, when you're youth, and you're still living with your parents, there's a, your parents are your most immediate kind of reflection of who you are in the world. You don't talk to your parents anyhow, unless you like enjoying slaps, So, and so it's important to be respectful as well. And some of them were not. It was like, yes, this is me. I'm the youth. I can talk anyhow, and it was not the best because that youth symposium also had a space for intergenerational knowledge, where people who were in their 50s and 60s could talk and say, these are the things that we've done. We were here 30 years ago, like you were. And we were the ones in the 68 riots in France, blah, 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 and so on. So it's good to get that intergenerational knowledge. But it starts off with what Lily said about, showing up and also being respectful, shadowing your bosses and not, seeking to be, more than they are and so on. So that was very interesting for me, finding out that the opportunities have increased, and that's great. But I think we need to let our younger cousins and nephews and nieces who are still Gen Z, remind them that, even in these spaces, it's a real privilege. Just get your act together, dress the part, dress well, but also make sure that you are speaking respectfully so that you learn a lot more. Sometimes it's good to just be quiet and listen to what's going on. The other thing I would say is that the social media has enabled a lot of opportunities. And so social media is not just about doing things for free and talking about politics like we love to do in Ghana, but it's about riding on the back of technologies to see what you can do differently. In spite of all the credentials that you read about me, one of the things that I have decided to do very differently, and it was an opportunity to also engage the youth, was I have transitioned from going, from just writing articles, which quickly gather dust, to storytelling, because I see that we're seeing a lot of things that Nollywood is doing, and we know that Nollywood is one of the fastest, even bigger, it's a bigger industry than Hollywood is now. They're producing so many movies. Some of the movies, they moved beyond juju, which is good. They're now doing a lot more sophisticated stories. But Nollywood is an example of how far Africans have come with storytelling. I think what I've done is I've written. The writer, I've moved from just writing articles now to crafting what I would probably call a crime thriller around Agenda 2063. So I'm going to be releasing the next, I've done 6 seasons, but season 1 is totally done. Season 2, I'm writing it. And the idea, it's a crime thriller based on Agenda 2063. I wanted to do comedy, then I realized that there wasn't enough comedy in me. So the only thing is to look into the deeper, darker instincts, which we all have, which is crime thriller. Lots of, more body counts than we have on our fingers. So that always raises appeal, because you want to know who did this, who killed who, that kind of thing. So it's a crime thriller based on Agenda 2063. But the whole idea is to say that, you can use storytelling to help people understand how the AU works. And it turns out that nothing like this exists. And I don't know how it's going to go. I'm a little scared by how people I've given it to who read it and say, this hasn't been done before. But I think that's where we need to go. We need to be telling stories about our experiences beyond the typical things that we see in Nollywood and Kumawood and all these things. The hard issues of freedom of movement, of challenges around our airlines, and all these things. They can be done in a way that integrated into plots for stories. And so that's what some of us have done, and we over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be releasing season 1 of the crime thriller. It's called Jazz Nights at Jupiter. You can Google it. You'll find some stuff about it, about a special crimes unit, fictional special crimes unit in Addis that investigates, serial killings that have been done on the basis of the 7 aspirations of Agenda 2063. So a peacekeeper who has been killed, someone who worked, an Ivorian art thief who collapsed in Brussels. The team needs to go out and find out what happened to him. How come so there's a lot of Interpol, a lot of law enforcement stuff. It's a whole lot of thrills. But the idea really is to say that this is what the youth can also do. And if this can help the youth better appreciate also how the continent works, then so be it. But these are the things that they can start thinking about. If some of us have pioneered this, let them start thinking about how they can also use their experiences at home, wherever else, to say, how do we tell stories that people can relate to? Because we all have stories within us. It's just a matter of just sitting down and bringing those stories out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's show some love to Mr. Benson. I particularly like what you say about storytelling, because one of the interesting things about policy is that it depends on mostly what the masses automatically ask for. And you can shape the mindset of the masses through storytelling. And that's the reason why a lot of people would say that lots of the Western ideals we have internalized is because of the Western content we have consumed for far too long. So I do appreciate it when you say that these are some of the things that we can do, because when we shape the mindsets of even our peers, it becomes a powerful tool to shape policy in the long run. So thank you very much. Please let's show some love to Mr. Benson. Now, back to you, Imali. You said that, well, the platforms have been created. We just need to show up ready so that we can be meaningfully engaged. Why do you think, or what do you think are the barriers that are preventing young people from actively engaging in such policy-making platforms or leading them in the first place? Why do you think we are not doing what ideally feels so easy to you?
I think one thing has already been alluded to by him. It's called disrespect. Yeah, you see, there is actually an African proverb that says you should never bite a finger that feeds you. I don't know why we have feedback. I don't know if this microphone. We are good? Yeah. You never bite the finger that feeds you. Even though sometimes you might not agree. I was cautioning a friend of mine last week. I drove almost 100 kilometers to go and see her because I wanted to tell her, you and your mother, you're not the same. Yes, your mother can do something that's hurtful to you, and it can be disrespectful to you. But how you give her feedback, it's very, very important. And disrespect does not show up in the marketplace just like that. It started from home. It's something that maybe it wasn't addressed and you think it's okay. And so you show up in school like that, and maybe your teachers are not addressing it and you think it's okay, and it grows. And it reaches a place where you understand, yes, I might not agree 100% with what the person is saying, but because of respect, I'm going to allow them to speak. And then I'm going to find avenues where when I am having a cup of coffee with them, I'm able to tell them what I think. Back to the story, I was talking to my friend, I was telling her, even though she doesn't agree with her mother, she has no right to answer her back in the same way. Instead, you can buy gifts for her and say, you know something, ma'am, I love you very much. You did not abort me. She had the chance to do that. When you were young, you could not wipe your ass. She did that for you. When you couldn't feed yourself, she fed you. Even though she didn't do according to expectation, she handled you to the level you are. You owe her respect. And once you can owe your mom respect, regardless of what she is, even though you're not the best child, she will bless you. Believe it or not. And once you have that affirmation, however corrupt it is, it will grow you. Because you want your parents to speak well of yourself. You want your teachers to speak good about you. And then you want your people to speak good about you. That actually makes you a good leader, and people can buy your idea, even though it's not 100% the bbest. When I was working in the banking industry, I had the privilege of going to good schools, and I graduated. By the time I was 20, I had done my first degree, and I had a job in the international bank, a South African international bank. And honestly, I could speak so well, but I couldn't sell so well. And you know who helped me? It's someone like him who told me, don't think individual, think masses. Think masses. And I went to G4S company, an American company, which of course is part of Kenya, and they do this security work. And I talked to a soldier in G4S, and he told me, you know what, Imali, we're recruiting. We are recruiting 3,000 people. So why can't you go and talk to a human resource manager who can give you the keys? I opened bank accounts. I met the targets for 10 years in 1 week. Because somebody older than me told me, don't think like this, think upper. Now, in the policy space, there are people you'll be there who are greedy, who've never been cultured, who think women are toys, who think young people are leaders of tomorrow. We don't know when this tomorrow is coming. And we know them. But when you show up there, don't ever disrespect that person. Don't you ever do that. In fact, listen to what he says, because there's a reason he's sitting in that seat. He knows something that you don't know. So when you're talking to them, listen to what they say. Listen the good things, the bad, sieve out what you don't need, take it away. What you need is what you use. And you say, Bwana Chair. You know, for us, we normally, if you're going to respect someone, you say Bwana so-and-so. It's Swahili word for Mr. I like what you said. I like what you did in this policy. Some of them have passed policies you've never passed. So you want them to take you through the journey. And they will tell you, this policy, you know, they will tell you the journey. Master the journey. Learn the art of advocacy. And then see how they influence a policy. So that when you influence a policy, in fact, you'll be the one driving your agenda. Be like, this is my child. I've taught them, you know. And they will show you the ropes. They will help you. But one of the things I will say, other than disrespect and dishonor, is also you trying to lift yourself when your time hasn't come. Every person is born great. This is my belief. I tell my staff, every person is born great. In fact, in the future, I always tell my 14-year-old child ambassador, we're the first organization to have a 14-year-old child ambassador, who, by the way, sits in our strategic plan and tells me, Mali, I don't like that idea. And I allow her to do that. And I tell her, as I am helping you and I'm cheering you on, because you have 4 years before you're 18, where you can be legally earning. We send money to her parents. when she's got an award, we send money to her mom, because we teach her to respect. And then after she's 18, maybe when she becomes a leader, she can decide. One of the things we tell her is you cannot dishonor people loudly. If you are disagreeing with someone, disagree with them back at home. When you're in front of people, there's a way you say, I might not necessarily agree with this, but this is how I bring it on. The other thing is also language. How do you want to address people who have a higher acumen than you? You need to master their language and use it so that they see, even though this person is young, they have that understanding. They have this voice inside their head that is making me want to listen to what they have to say. So if you're going to dishonor people, if you're going to disrespect people, and then you're not going to speak their language, you know, the way, sorry to say, many Gen Alphas and Gen Z, instead of telling people good morning, they say, hi y'all, how y'all doing? Y'all fine, y'all good, you're good, you know, you're good, all protocol observed. You keep doing like that. People are going to stop inviting you for their forums because you have no respect. You have no honor. Those people, they did a lot to get to where they are. They might not use the roads that you think are ethical, which maybe actually will going to shape our next discussion on policy. But they did something that you haven't done. And if you can learn to honor people, and if you can learn to respect people, and then you can learn their language, then you'll go up faster, you'll get to the things that you need faster, and you'll get more endorsements faster. And maybe before I hand over the opportunity to my colleague to speak, last year, actually it was late last year, 2024, there's a friend of mine who told me, you have the acumen to write a paper that can be read globally. All you need to do is read these concept notes, draft a paper, and you'll see how far you can go. And I followed what they told me. Much as I am a seasoned writer, and I was like, this person has no idea of the IMF austerity measures in Kenya. I'm the one who's the Kenyan here. But I listened to what they had to say, and that opportunity gave me a chance to go to the US this year for 3 months. I submitted my paper. It was accepted in Boston. I also worked in New York. I also had an opportunity to go to Miami, fully paid, fully sponsored. And you can imagine if I dishonored this person, I'm like, this person does not have an idea of how the IMF austerity measures affect the youth. They're not even Kenyan. If I had dismissed that, then I would have lost opportunities. Most people do not become great because they don't have the greatness in them. Most people do not become great because of dishonor, because of disrespect. When you tell an older person, you people are too old, you have white hair, you have no reason to do that. Remember one thing, you will reap what you sow. God will wait for you until you have white hair. And then you'll find people talking to you the same way, and you will not like it.
Let me stay on you for a bit, right? Let's assume that, so you identify two main barriers. One is disrespect, two is language. Let's assume that young people have a grasp over respect and mastering the language of their superiors or the power brokers. Does that automatically mean that young people get to meaningfully participate in the decision-making process? Does it automatically mean that young people get to experience the opportunities that you have experienced? Because I've come across young people who have basically walked the shadows of people in power, members of parliament for so many years, and serve them diligently with hopes that one way or the other they can be elevated too, and they have spent years and years in that service and nothing to show for it. What do you think such a young person should do within that circumstance to meaningfully participate? For him to say that I have drafted this policy, or these are my thoughts on this particular conversation happening in Parliament, can you even take a look at it? What would, moving beyond the fundamentals of respect and language, how do you think such a young person can practically push forward?
Okay, yeah. Actually, what you're saying is true, because in some cases you've seen people who are perennially following people who never give them a chance. But as an individual, you're supposed to have a 20-year strategy. Actually, you're supposed to have a strategy until the time you want to die. Because you need to, yes, I mean, all of us at one time, one day or another, God forbid, unless Jesus tarries, you will die. Yeah, yesterday we were talking about investment, and this person was only talking about investment until you're 50. I was like, what about when you die? You're supposed to plan. Otherwise, you know, if you die and, you know, people are crying for you to be resurrected, why should you be resurrected? What is the plan that you had? Anyway, but that's a story for another day. So in your plan, you know, I want to work here for this amount of time. I know after this amount of time, I should have gotten valuable knowledge that should take me to the next level. Now, if that is the plan that you have, you start working. There are people you're working under, but now there are people that you look for to mentor. Because the other thing is, unfortunately, not all the people who are ahead of us have the best interest of us. Unfortunately, that is the truth. There are people who, they always want you to be down there. As long as you're down there, they're happy. But when you start climbing, they will find a way to, to shoot you, so you find a balance. Work for them. You don't work from 8 to faint. You work from 8 to 5, isn't it? You have extra hours. There are some things that you can do with that extra hours. First and foremost, now we have the power of social media. You can always go and tell people what you've learned, respectfully, as I said. Like in my case, I would say, if I was Ghanaian, I would say the Ghanaian government has done ABCD towards this development. And as a young person, I'm following up on this so that I will be updating you on Instagram. Instead of showing people, oh, look, I have a new chain. Oh, look, I have new earrings. Oh, look at my sunglasses. I mean, you can do that, but what is the value for that? Because if you're going to give people information, somehow it will come back to you and people will be asking you for more. And that will compel you and that will make you as a strategic leader. The other thing is read. If you're going to lead, you have to read. You have to read about the subtopics that you're interested in. When you're interested in the subtopics that you're interested in, the more you do it, if you can read 1 hour a day about a topic that you're really interested in, you become a pro over time. And what that compels people to do, even if they say a prophet is not honored in their home, if you're not honored here, you'll be honored there. My brother said he loves East Africa. I told him this morning, come home where you belong. I'm telling you, if you're not honored here, you'll be honored elsewhere. The fact that I've worked in 52 countries, actually more than, it's not because I was the very best in my industry. No. It's because I provoked people in different countries. And I also taught them, what do you think about this topic? Do you have funds for this? Like right now, we're talking about COP31. COP30 just ended in Brazil. So now I have 10 staff. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get all of them to Turkey next year? But I'm thinking about that now. So I'm going to look for strategic leaders who are going to help them. They might not be loud at home, but something funny happens whenever we show up in these COP events. Our leaders are like, oh, you're from my country. Hey, this is my number. After this discussion, when we have the post-COP in our country, you can come and help. So there's that strategy. The other thing I will say is prayer. Whether you believe it or not, life is very spiritual. And I know people normally want to divorce. Me, I'm a Christian or I'm a Muslim or whichever religion you subscribe to, and I work differently. They are not separated. They are combined. Actually, your ethics, your standard, your values, they normally shape your career. So if you're going to separate them, you're going to be scattered. You're always going to be scattered. You need to dissolve and make one so that you see, these are my values. If I believe in God, then I'm going to be asking him, how do I conquer? Even King David was like, do I conquer, do I not? And be like, he'll tell you, no, you don't have strength. Don't go for this battle. This is not your battle. Allow somebody else to fight for you. I will tell you, conquer and go. Fight and win, so that you know. Because sometimes your barrier, sorry to say this, I used to have a boss who, honestly, she didn't like me. To be honest, deep down my soul, I also did not like her. But I couldn't tell her, I don't like you. I couldn't tell her all that. But I was like, God, please help me. Change this environment for me. Or you either take her away or you take me away. Whichever will work. And lo and behold, she got a promotion in another company and she left. And guess who she endorsed to be the leader? Me. So it's strategy, because if you don't pray, you're going to be miserable for so long. Especially, and sorry to say this, and even the guys who are taking media, it's fine. Most of these big organizations, you know them. I won't mention because some of them are either my partners or maybe I aspire to lead them in future. So I will not name them. But some of these organizations, you find somebody has been working there for 9 years with the same job, 10 years. And you want me to congratulate you in LinkedIn. Even me, sometimes I'm like, should I congratulate this person or feel sorry for them? Because it tells me that you have a leader who doesn't want you to grow, or you yourself, you have become so comfortable that you don't want to grow. When you're in one position for more than 10 years, there is a problem. I think maybe there is just a challenge somewhere. There's a lack of strategy. So I feel that you should get all that. You should be respectful. You should be honorable. But most importantly, you should have a strategy and pray every day. That's one of the things I think that you should never miss.
Thank you very much, Imali. Mr. Mensah, please. in the spirit of us showing up well and speaking the right language, being respectful, we get to these spaces and we get to say what we think about issues. Are there certain mechanisms in place to ensure that whatever we say in those rooms are implemented effectively? For instance, if I'm a young person and I go by the foundational principles that have been laid out here, and I go into a space where they are discussing the free trade movement and how young people can contribute, and I contribute to that discussion, right? How do I ensure that my contribution in that conference, in that committee or whatnot, is effectively implemented? Are there certain mechanisms in place for young people to follow up on, ensure that their voices are actually being heard and implemented? Kindly share your experience with that, Fuyad.
Sure, that's a very good question. There aren't really any serious mechanisms to do follow-ups on whether the youth's voices will be integrated beyond conferences that will say, oh, the youth has been invited, let's hear. But one of the soft skills I would recommend, and which has worked for me, has been the ability to write. Take your writing seriously. I have come as far as I am because my parents encouraged me and my brother to write when we were younger, as often as we could. I'm not even sure what I should say. I'm ashamed to say, but even at the age I am, I'm still writing a diary. I've been writing a diary since age 11. Though I don't call it a diary any longer, I call it a journal because it sounds more sophisticated. Yeah, but writing does a lot of things to you that sometimes having a beer with a friend does not, because writing brings out who you are, brings out clarity, brings out purpose in ways in which other things do not. How writing has helped me, and why I would recommend that as a response to spaces, is because when you write, you are singled out as someone who has something to say, something that is valuable. Let me give you a very quick example. Last year, the African Union was holding a meeting with ECOWAS on the aviation industry. So what they want to do is they want ECOWAS, they realize that West Africa has the highest fares, taxes, charges, and fees on airlines. It's very expensive. So the ECOWAS has proposed that by the year 2026, 1st January, fares of ECOWAS airlines should come down, okay, by 50%. And so that's a very good proposal. So what I did was I had one or two people I know at the AU's agency responsible for promoting aviation. It's in Dakar. It's called AFCAC, the African Civil Aviation Commission. So I reached out to this guy and said, he said, oh, they're having this meeting. Then he sent me the link to the meeting that they were having in Togo, and I followed it over Zoom as and when the boring bits I skipped, and then I listened. Then when I was done, I wrote an article of about 1,000 words or something about the meeting. And then he said, I really like your article. I showed it to the Secretary General. I was like, the who? So the Secretary General, my boss. And before I knew it, he had added me to a platform or an organizational platform of the AFCAC, where you had the big guys whose pockets were like 10 times deeper than mine, who were talking about aviation stuff. And I'm like, how did I get here? And it was because I took that initiative to write about the conference. Even though I didn't attend, I just followed over Zoom. I just said, let me write about this and bring out my stubbornness and everything about who I am to the issue. And he liked it. He showed it to the Secretary General. Secretary General said, give this guy access. So for me, this is not the first time. I can cite different examples of where my writing has got me into trouble. And sometimes that's good too, because you learn from that. And people, you get noticed. Yeah, when you get into trouble, it's good too.
Mr. Mensah, before you continue, let me interject a bit. which platforms have you published your writing to give you the level of visibility that you have? Because one of the things you keep emphasizing is storytelling, writing, and putting yourself out there. But could you please tell us, maybe there are specific platforms that you put your pieces there? Do you tag specific people when you write? Like, give us the backdoor tips on how do you ensure your writing gets into the right space.
Okay, so I would recommend LinkedIn. If you want serious articles to be noticed, send it to LinkedIn. On Facebook, you realize that you'll come back 1 week later, there's just one like. But on LinkedIn, you are likely to get someone serious, higher up than you, who will notice and give you a like and maybe send a message in LinkedIn and say, wow, you know, we're doing something, there's some conferences, blah, blah, that kind of thing. So LinkedIn. If you have a website, try and post it on your website. Now, let me quickly say something about website. Website is like real estate. You need to preserve it with the sanctity that you manage a house. Because when you have a website, in my view, it shows seriousness. A website says that, for example, your name at your own website, it shows someone who's serious, who's dedicated to making an impact in ways in which other people would not with just your Gmail. A website where you post different things about what you do also lets the world know that you are onto something. You are not where you are supposed to be, but you will get somewhere. So I would recommend the youth also thinking about setting up a website. These days, you can get websites for a year, around $100, let's say $200 for a year, with everything, full functionality of a website, the content management systems, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So a website, if you can manage it, because it shows seriousness and usually leads you to something else. If Google manages to make the website index it well as well, you realize that over time your website will be featured in Google very easily once people start Googling your name. Secondly, LinkedIn. Facebook, use it sparingly, use it for frivolous stuff, but not serious stuff. Sometimes you'll get serious people there who will comment, but I would recommend LinkedIn. And then there's this other website called Substack, which I recently discovered. It was actually an AI tool that recommended it for me, interestingly. Substack is good for those who are in the creative space because you can follow who actually, you can follow the statistics of any article you post. It's free statistics, so you can see that you've had 100 visitors, 20 visitors to an article. The other thing is that you can get people to pledge to pay you to follow the things you post. So it could be on anything. There's a button there on Substack when you open an account that says pledge either for free, $50, $5 a month or so. It motivates you to also be posting more there as well. So that's Substack, LinkedIn, and then if you can set up your own website, I would recommend that as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Bensa. Please let's show some love to him. We are almost ending. I know it's lunchtime and you're hungry. Or you're enjoying the conversation. Are you enjoying the conversation? Awesome. So I would like us to bring this this conversation back home, right? I want you to, in 2 to 3 minutes, just tell us, in your own opinion, what a policy-making process looks like, and how do we demystify that process so that young people do not see policy-making as some huge task that is for some diplomat or young people writing on LinkedIn, but it's basically for every single one of us from different spaces, from different interest areas. So what is the policy-making process for you, and how do we demystify that for young people?
Okay, thank you so much. I hope we'll also have a chance to indulge with the audience. So I'll try I'll try to make my submissions very succinct. So I think for me being a Kenyan, we have a privilege of where our constitution allows us to engage in policy. It's been so since 2013, which is quite a way back. So what happens if you want your voice in the policy? you make sure that you talk to the member of the county assembly. And whenever they table something, you follow up at county level, because all of us are in different counties, and we have 47 counties. So you can help them to table it or follow when it's being tabled and follow its proceedings and make sure that now the asks that you have are embedded in that policy. So it's a process, because for us, we normally imbibe the policy to something called as the CIDP, which is the County Integrated Development Plan. And it's a plan for the tenure of the members of the county assembly, which is 5 years from the electoral year. So Kenya went to elections in 2022 up to 2027. That's now when the current CIDP is run. So as an individual, I have a right to go to the county that I am in and say the things that I want to be in this policy and follow the proceedings to the end, if I want it to be at county level. If I want it to be at national level, now it's very different, because there are very many players within the national space, including but not limited to CSOs, the Bingo constituency, which has the business people, the Tungo constituency, which also has the trade unions. So there are different constituencies that you can always use to get your issues put in place. Now, one of the biggest policies in Kenya is the PFM Act. I'm sure most of you have been able to go online and see how Kenyans, we went global because of the Public Financial Management Act. And that's because the views were given, and it's usually with mainstream media, they were not considered. And when they were not considered, and when this policy, there was a policy that was passed and it was aired, people were so upset. People were like, my voice was not there. That's when all these issues came along. But I'm sure because our president and everybody else is now keen to make sure that in the subsequent years, our views are collected. Hopefully next year we'll not have Mapambano. But Mapambano is like people coming together to fight, demand for their rights, you know. And for us, it's such a big deal. I would invite Ghanaians, please, to come to Kenya next year in June to watch. If the flights, they don't subsidize the flight, I think if you just turn east and start walking, you'll get there before June. And let me tell you, Kenyans, we open, people will open. In Kenya, we have so many people, and I'm telling you, you're more than welcome to just witness how we are very passionate about our policies. Because initially, not many young people were interested in the PFM Act until it came home. Because I was part of the budget advocacy when I was working for a German organization, and we really used to influence it at different levels until it's gone for public hearing, second reading, and then it's ascended into power. Like it is now ascended and becomes a bill. So when I used to talk to my fellow comrades and say, well, let's go to parliament, and listen, like, yeah, you Imali, you go there, so you're making money online. Until they realized by then the government has now passed a policy, a law. If you're working online, there's a certain amount of tax that you have to pay, and they're like, yeah, it's come back home. So the thing about this, the reason I'm sharing this is, you see, if you don't engage in policy as Ghanaians, someone else is making that policy on your behalf without you. And it will either affect you directly now, affect your unborn children and your born great-grandchildren, and they will blame you for not showing up. So you can always find avenues. I haven't studied the Ghanaian system. I would have maybe been prepared for this if I knew you're interested. And I can actually study it and come and teach it to you at your own expense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mali. Please show some love to her. I think what you get from Imali in this conversation right now is that go study the policy-making process, the law-making process in Ghana. The constitution is very affordable. They sell it in traffic. You can go to the High Court complex and even grab one, because knowledge is your most powerful tool. If you know how it's supposed to be done, then you can now start contributing to it, writing about it, mobilizing other young people and saying, what do you think about this? Let's put this together. That way it becomes open to all of us, but if you don't know how the process is like, then you can't influence it. Thank you very much, Imali. Please, over to you, Mr. Benson.
So my recommendation, this is an opportunity to plug the Africa Peer Review Mechanism. Okay. Why is that important? Because the Africa Peer Review Mechanism is the AU's agency responsible for promoting good governance as per Aspiration 3 and 4 of Agenda 2063. Aspiration 4 speaks to peace and security, 3, good governance, human rights, and so on. Now, the reason why I would plug APRM is because APRM is the only AU agency that has national structures. So in Ghana, we have an APRM office, National APRM office. It's at Seoul International School around Labone there. Almost every country that has acceded to the Africa Peer Review Mechanism has a national structure. So the communications network that I belong to, for example, the revised one, we have members who are from the communications, who work in communications within Kenya, and in Kenya they have domesticated the peer review. So it's a county peer review mechanism where they actually localize governance. So it's an AU thing that they have domesticated. Ghana has been trying to do that as well. Other countries are doing that. They have APRM national structure in Chad and almost every AU state. So why this is important is because it's good governance. Good governance includes how parliaments work, corruption, and all these things. And the APRM also has a distinction of offering a space through the National Governing Council, which is like the voice. That's the interface between the government, so in Ghana would be the presidency, and the APRM structure, the Continental Secretariat in South Africa, and also the national office here, where it's populated by civil society members, some are experts, who relay the information between the presidency from the secretariat to, in Ghana to the presidency. So, and you can go to the APRM office if you have any query on anything to do with Ghana's parliament, Ghana's governance, human rights, because what the APRM usually does is they have country reports of the state of every country. So Ghana Ghana was one of the first countries, in fact, to do the Africa Peer Review Mechanism back in 2006 under President Kufuor. I think it's scheduled to have another review of the country next year. Ghana had what it calls a targeted review. A targeted review is a review made upon request by the member state on a specific issue. So Ghana's targeted review last in 2023 was for the corporate governance as a catalyst for the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. So the APRM team in South Africa came down, they met with the Ghanaian team here, they lobbied, they went to Ghana Revenue Authority, After Secretary, whichever, to look at whether people understood what the AFCFTA does. So they're going to launch, President Mahama will launch that report next year at the AU Summit in February. And then hopefully it'll be disseminated in Ghana. So because APRM has specific mandate for good governance, human rights, and all these things, it enables it to be a space where youth can ventilate. They can walk into the office. The office is the Labone office. They can go and say, look, I have a query on Ghana's parliament, on corruption, on so and so. Can you help me? The APRM office here can do that. And that is what a lot of people don't know. That the AU, you see, the AU works, but it's also about reading, knowing that the AU is doing some of these things so that you can take advantage of it. And for me, my last takeaway would be that if you want to see policy at work, and you are in Ghana, the APRM office is open. They'll be able to help you, at least direct you to certain things you need to do on how you can influence policy. Largely also because the APRM has this youth symposium where I was at 2 weeks ago. And it has an annual event every year. And the idea is it's a space for youth to come together across the continent and talk about the youth-related issues. Final thing is that in 2027, the APRM will be launching what they call the Africa Governance Report on youth, okay? So what they have done, why 2027? Because this year, 2025, was when they had another governance report on a different theme, on natural resources. And the report comes out every 2 years. Now, what they have done, next year in 2026, the youth protocol, the AU's youth protocol will be 20 years. So it's an opportunity for the youth out here to go to that, you download, Google the youth protocol, the AU, and look at how the youth is impacting the continent. In countries like Namibia, they have youth investment banks. They have a whole lot of different things that the youth is doing, which is becoming best practice. In Uganda, I think they have youth parliaments as well, which are quite active. So there's a whole lot of things that other countries are doing on youth. And institutions like the APRM are a good space where I would recommend the youth can engage to see what they can do and help influence policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benza. So if locally you look through our lawmaking process, you can also go to the African peer review offices just so that you can have more resources, and then always go online. There's more information there. I'm told our time is up. I actually know our time is up, but can I get like 2 questions from the audience before we go? There's already 2 people's hands up. Okay, just 3 questions. It will be very quick. I'll time our answers, okay? Is that okay? Thank you very much. All our timekeepers are very generous. Let's show some love to them. Thank you. So I have 2, and then there's a gentleman here. Okay, so just those 3. Anyone else who had a question that cannot ask right now? It's a good networking opportunity for you. So when we finish, just walk up to any of the speakers and say, yeah, I had this question. Then you can take their number from there. Awesome. Please, let's go ahead. Thank you.
My question is, were there bad times? Did you have public backlash? Because here it is not so that we touch policy. We are very far away from policy. All that we know is that things are happening in the Ghanaian economy, and that ends it. We don't have a say, we don't touch it, and then, you find your way and solve your own problem.
Okay, we'll note that question down. If you experience backlash, and probably how to manage that? The next question, please. We are taking all the questions at a go, and then they will respond.
Thank you so much. So my question is, at what point does voicing out become disrespectful? Because growing up in the Ghanaian culture, we are being taught children are only seen and not heard. So growing up, they will tell you, oh, it's fine, you can start speaking. And then when you start speaking, then you have someone telling you, you're doing impenism. So at what point does voicing out become disrespect? Thank you.
Okay, so in terms, Mr. Bansa, you take the first question, and then Imali, you take the second question. The first question on backlash. Okay. The last person was here. Yes. Yes, yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Prince Efri from the University of Ghana. So far, I like the conversation. I like the fact that you're talking about how we're going to uplift ourselves, right? But considering the landscape of governance and other bodies, is there an organizational body or something that is youth-led that will help the youth to also rise to the top and then have a voice, like a veto power in decision-making, like exclusively youth-led, and then we audit the policies that are going to affect us as youth and the other citizens as well. But in Africa here, about 60% of our population is youth. So I feel there is no organization that is there to help us get our voice out there. It shouldn't always be us forcing to get our voice out there, but then there should be something that will help us to get the voice out there.
Thank you, Prince. Prince, I think in your concluding remarks, both of you can respond to the idea that we don't need to fight to get our voices heard. How do we ensure that it's heard anyway? So, Mr. Bensa, we'll take your response first, and then Imali will take.
Okay, so let me work my way backwards.
Yeah.
The AU has a Pan-African Youth Union. You can Google it. That's an organizational body that has a relationship with the African Union, on where youth can contribute their views on anything happening on the continent. So with the youth, just remember, one thing you must remember, that just as I have left the youth bracket, it's been about 8 years now, you too will leave the youth bracket someday. Youth is a transient stage. When you're on your youth stage, you think you'll be there forever, until you start growing gray hairs and someone starts calling you uncle. And very annoyingly, it happens to be your nephew or your niece calling you uncle when they know how old you are. But anyway, the real point of the matter is it's a transient stage. So just remember that whatever you do, you have to have a long-term vision. That these things that you have, is it really for now, or is it for the future? How will it benefit others as well? At the end of the day, whatever youth come up with, it's really, it needs to benefit the larger demographic. If you look at what Birama has done with this Reformation community as well, she started at age 13. Look at the fact that how far it has grown. She had a long-term vision. So we need to have that long-term goal and a bit of selflessness as well. I mean, as I sit here, I may not have a penny in my on me, but it doesn't stop me from still thinking that it's important to do good, or to think long-term about how others can also benefit from the ideas and things that I have. It's not always about the money, because the money let your ideas carry you, and the money will follow you. It's not always about chasing the money. And I think one of the problems the youth have largely is that, what is it that I can do that will give me money short-term right away? And that's a problem. You will trip up along the way, or you find yourself corrupted by politicians and whoever else, because they know how desperate you are. So that is one admonition I would put forward. What is it that you think is so important that you can use going forward? So that's where I would leave my answer. For the answers, you're right, madam. Ghanaians, friend, Oman for whoever, the government and things like that. Why wouldn't they come and help? We're waiting for them to come and help, and that kind of thing. It is true, but the world is changing, and you see, you have to start from your community. Some of us started in our neighborhoods, helping out in our neighborhoods, doing whatever we could. And some of the people there noticed, and as they went on with their career, they called back on some of us to say, look, we like what you did, come and help us in these spaces. So yes, we don't always have to wait for the government to do things, even though a lot of people like to do that. But still, if you think you don't like something, like the noise of the church is too loud, and you need to call Environmental Protection Agency so that they can, come and take the plug out from the church or whatever. Those are things that you can do. You don't need to wait for the government to come and do that. So I would say that, yes, your point is valid, but we are at the stage where social media will not permit us to, to stay quiet when wrong things are happening. We need to act in whatever little ways we can. And I like the fact that among my contemporaries, for example, some of my Kenyan friends who are slightly older than me and around my age were saying that their children, they were actually the ones who were paying to make sure that their children were on the streets fighting during last year's riots in Kenya. But no one is acknowledging them. They forget there was actually some of the parents who were supporting the Gen Z. And so sometimes the mothers, the fathers are doing things in the background to support what the youth are doing. And that happens a lot. It's happened with me in my family. And I hope that it will continue to happen in different Ghanaian families as well. We need to see that. Let's not always wait for the government to be doing things before things move. And finally, in paying some and all those things. It's true. I've had quite a bit of slaps when I was younger as well, when I talked. And I'll blame it on my older brother that he was the one who talked. But you see, there's a space, there's a time and a space for everything. So you have to measure when you need to talk and when not to talk, as Lily has also alluded to. You don't just talk anyhow or anytime because you think you are old enough to talk. Listen more so that you can make an informed conversation, informed speech. And that's where I would leave it. You also have to use your own discretion to see, is this a good time to talk? When mom and dad have had an argument, is it a good time to actually talk? Maybe not, because you might not get your dinner on time. So use your discretion, and then take things from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imali. Just 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, I'll try to be very succinct. I'll first start with the man who said there are no organizations here in Ghana that can help bridge. You said there's no organization that can help you bridge the gap to understand policy. So this is what I will do. In the unlikely event that this next year, time like now, there is none, I will go back to Kenya. There are many single women there who want to marry Ghanaian men. We will come here and be half Kenyan, half Ghanaian, and create that organization so that we empower you to understand your own policy, because you don't want to understand. The thing is this: if you don't take action, if you don't take this opportunity, someone else will take it for you. And don't feel bad. Us will come and we will help you to be hired so that you understand your own policy. I will think I want to follow this up. Next year, the Leadership Summit 2026, make sure he comes so that I know whether this session had an impact on him or not. I will personally follow up on this. The other thing about disrespect, I think you've covered it a lot. In every discussion, people normally have operating parameters. You see, it's cordial, you cannot come say, I don't like that idea. Your idea is foolish. How can you tell me such an idea? There's a way you can tell somebody the same thing and not sound disrespectful. You can say, I feel that the ideas shared are unwise for this agenda. You can create a right of response that is now an individual on a domestic. Don't use that in an international setting. But you see that in the growing spaces that you're operating in international forums, we always have ways of talking to each other, all protocol observed, And then the other thing is you can disagree. If you feel strongly about an idea that you feel people are gallivanting, going around it, as an organization, as we do, we work as a consortium. Don't ever be the protruding pimple on someone's face. People like, there's something big on your forehead. Let me squeeze it for you. But if you're like, I want to work with these other people, we all have the similar agenda, and you announce it as a collective, you will see how quickly you can go. The same thing with young people. If you strongly disagree on an issue, if you are an individual, it's very easy for you to be targeted and singled out. But if you come collectively and say, hey, look, we feel that this can be done, and then find the most diplomatic person, and then the most humble person, which is a comment I really feel itchy to say. Yesterday we were told not to be humble. I disagree. You need to be humble, because humility is a lot of power under control. It's just how you do it. It's how you say it, how you frame your words, how you frame your work. That will really help you in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Imali. And thank you so much, my audience. I like the engagement and the attentiveness so far. But more importantly, thank you, our speakers, for sharing your time, your knowledge, your experience to shape us and ensure that we are reforming every aspect of our future on our own. Thank you. It's been lovely moderating this session. We'll have a quick picture session.